Hi, I got lots of positive feedback on the deconstructing questions video I did for a level 2 paper recently, so I'm going to do the same thing for a level 1 paper. This is Pearson Edexcel June 2018, and I'm just going to pick a couple of questions from here and really try and break the questions down into lots of detail so you can see the process to follow. Okay, so it's not going to be the full paper, but I am starting with question 1. Okay, Michael wants to buy a new car. He needs to pay a cash deposit of £5,875, £229.20 each month for 24 months. Work out the total amount Michael will pay and show a cheque of your working. Right, so again, as we did on the previous paper, if you saw it, we look at this number straight away because this is telling us how many marks we've got. So 4 marks, that means that there's 4 things that we need to do. So let's plan out our answer and think about what these 4 steps that we might have to do are. Right, well, we're trying to work out the total amount. Well, we know we've got this cash deposit and we've got some monthly payments. So I suppose the first thing we're going to want to do is work out what these monthly payments are going to be in total. So work out total of monthly payments. Okay, so we're not concentrating on how we're going to do it, it's more than what we're going to have to do. So, right, we'll have to work out how much this is going to be in total. And then when we've done that, well, then we know we're going to have this cash deposit as well. So the second step would be add the total of up here. So of, or maybe we can, of what we worked out in that step to the 5,875 or to the deposit. Okay, so then we're going to have a total. The third step we're going to do, well, we don't know exactly what that total is going to be like. So what we're going to want to do is write the new total in pounds and with 2 decimal places. I'll put 2dp. Okay, because it's going to be money. So we've got to have the currency, we've got to have 2 decimal places for the pence. So we might have to round it, we might not. We won't really know until we've done the calculation. Now, 4 marks, so the fourth step, well, they've asked us to show a cheque. So the last mark is going to be for the cheque. Okay, and this cheque could either be a reverse calculation, or we could do, I suppose in this instance, we could maybe do an estimate. Okay, so it's going to be one of those. Right, so now we've planned out the question, we can actually do it now. So, step 1, work out the total monthly payments. Well, we've got £229.20 for 24 months. So we're going to multiply those together. Now, because this is the old style exam paper, all of these questions could be answered with a calculator. So we've got £229.20 and we've got 24 months. So that's going to give us 5,500.8. Okay, if we want to make that as money, we need to put a pound sign and our 2 decimal places. So for part 2, we said, well, then we've got to add to our total the deposit. So we're going to add on 5,875. So we've got this here, add on 5,875, and we get 11,375.8. Now for the third step, we said we've got to take this answer and we want to put the pound sign, so put the currency on it, and we need to have 2 decimal places because it's pounds and pence. So it's going to be £11,375 and 80 pence. Now we want our 4th step. So this is what we said, show a check. So a reverse calculation would be to start with the answer and work backwards. So the last thing we did was to add on the deposit. We would want to take off the deposit. So if we start with our answer and we subtract 5875, we get back to 5,500.8. And if we want to go all the way back to the start of the question, well, we multiplied the monthly amount by 24. So if we divide that by 24, it should take us all the way back to £229.20, which we started with. So this is our, let's put this in a box. So that's the reverse calculation, or reverse calc. However, we did say that we could do a different check, and that was to use an estimate. So if we're going to do an estimate, well, what we can do with that is say, well, the first thing we did, the £229.20, we can say, well, that's approximately equal to, well, let's round that to the nearest big number, let's round that to £200. And then we can say, well, 24, well, let's round that to the nearest 10. We've got 20. So 200 times 20, well, you can use a calculator, or you can say 2 times 2 is 4. 1, 2, 3 zeros go on the end. So that's our estimate for this part up here. Then for the deposit, we can say, well, 5,875, that's approximately equal to, so that's this sort of wiggly equal sign, approximately equal to. Well, let's do it to the nearest 1,000, so 6,000. So we've got 4,000 plus 6,000. Again, you can use a calculator, but 4,000 and 6,000, well, that's going to be 10,000. And we can say, well, that's approximately, well, it's close-ish to £11,375.80. Okay, so this is our second. So that was a reverse calc. This was our estimate, and you can choose which check you use. Right, next question we're going to have a look at is question 6. What about snooker? So let's move this up here. Okay, Talvin wants to put a snooker table in a room in his house. The length of the snooker table is 270 centimetres. The room is 5.5 metres. And we've got the cue Talvin uses to play snooker is 145 centimetres. Talvin uses this rule to find out the length of the if the length of the room is enough to play snooker on this table. So we take the cue length in centimetres, multiply it by 2, add the length of the table in centimetres, and you end up with the length of the room needed in centimetres. And the question, is the length of this room enough to play snooker on this table? Right, this is another 4-mark question. So 4 steps that we've got to do. So what are these 4 steps going to be? Well, the first thing we're going to need to do, because we want to find out, we want to know if the room is big enough. So to do that, we need to find out the length of the room that we need. So we're going to use this formula. So the very first thing we're going to do is our multiplication. So because that's what comes first in the formula, do the multiplication. So what that's going to be is the cue length Q he uses is 145. So I'm just going to show, so we'd do 145 multiplied by 2. I won't work out the answer now because I'm just laying out how we do it. Then what would we need to do once we've done that? Well, once we've done this bit, we'd need to add the table length. Okay, so 2 would be to add the table length. So that's going to be adding on, what's the table length? 270. Right, so once we've got that, we're going to have the length of room needed. Well, that's going to tell us the length of the room needed. We've got what the room is, but the room is in metres. We're going to be getting an answer in centimetres. So what we need to do here is convert, and we can either convert the centimetres to metres, or because most measurements here are in centimetres, I'm going to convert the length of room to centimetres. So from metres to centimetres. So we know there's 100 centimetres in a metre, so we're going to need to do 5.5 multiplied by 100. And once we've done all of that, the last bit is going to be to compare our figures. So it's going to be compare the length of room needed with the actual length of the room. Okay. So let's do this. So as I said before, we can use a calculator. So 145 times 2. So now this really should all be nice and straightforward because I'm not having to do a lot of thinking because I've done my thinking here. I'm just doing what this is telling me to do. So I've got the 290. Then the next step said add the table length. So I'm just going to add the 270. This gives me 560. And that's in centimetres. Then separately I've got to convert the length of the room to centimetres. So I've already said I just need to do 5.5 times 100, which is 550 centimetres. And the last step was this: compare the length of the room needed with the actual length of the room. Well, the length of the room needed is what we worked out, so it's 560, and we're comparing it with the actual length, which is 550. So the length needed is bigger than the actual length. So is the length of the room enough to play snooker on this table? No. That's our answer. So it might seem a bit strange planning out the question, and I don't necessarily expect you to write it all down, but it's thinking it through so that then you saw when we went through the calculations, this bit was very quick because we've separated our thinking from our doing. And it just makes it a lot more efficient. Okay, now the last question I'm going to do is actually the next part of that question. So it's part B. So before we get on to part B, we're given some more information. So we're told Talvin needs to buy some snooker chalk to use with the cue. He compares these two offers. So we've got offer 1, 4 pieces of chalk for £1.80. Offer 2, 6 pieces of chalk, £2.28. Talvin thinks that each piece of chalk is 10p cheaper with offer 2. Is each piece of chalk 10p cheaper with offer 2? Show a check of your working. So 5 marks. So although I'm going to go through these in steps again, because they told me I've got to check, I know that my last mark's going to be for the check. So I'm going to bear that in mind. Right, well, we're looking at the price of each piece of chalk. So the first thing I'm going to do is work out price of one piece of chalk, and that's going to be with offer 1. Okay, so this is for 4 pieces. We're going to work out what we need for 1 piece. Well, we're also going to need to do the same thing for offer 2. So we can do ditto, ditto, ditto. So work out a price of 1 piece of chalk with offer 2. Well, once we've worked that out, we're going to have 2 answers there. Well, they're talking about, is it 10p cheaper? Well, if we want to know if it's how much cheaper it is, we're going to need to work out the difference. So work out difference for 1 piece of chalk between offer 1 and 2. And once we've got that difference, well, then we can compare the difference with 10p, because that's the question. Is each piece of chalk cheaper? So in other words, is the difference between them equal to 10p? And right at the beginning I said, well, I know my last mark is going to be do a check. Okay. So in this case, I'm probably, and we don't always know until we've done it, but I think if I did an estimate, it's not, won't be so good because we're trying to compare them very precisely. So if we round, it's not going to be precise enough. So the check I'm probably going to do is a reverse calculation, but we'll see when we get there. Okay, so work out the price of 1 piece of chalk with offer 1. So it's all planned out. So we've got £1.80. That's for 4 pieces. So we want to divide that by 4. So £1.80 divided by 4. And that gives me 0.45 or 45p. Now we need to do the same thing for offer 2. Well, offer 2 is £2.28. And that's for 6 pieces, so we're going to divide that by 6. And we get 0.38 pounds, which is the same as 38p. And step 3, we said work out the difference. So the difference, well, first of all, they said, is each piece of chalk cheaper, 10p cheaper with offer 2? Well, offer 2 is certainly cheaper because it's smaller, 38 is smaller than 45. The actual difference is going to be 45 minus 38. So because we're working in pence, I don't need the decimals. I can just say 45 minus 38. We've got 7p, so that's the third step. Then we compare it with 10p. Well, 7p is not equal to 10p. So is each piece 10p cheaper with offer 2? No, it's not. Okay, so for this check, I said I think I'll do a reverse calculation. So what I'm going to do is for each of the offers, I'm going to start with the per piece price, so 45p, and I'm going to multiply it by 4 to check we get back to this. So I can do 45 times 4, which is 180. That's going to be 180p. So if we want that in pounds, so actually let's write that. So that was 180p, which is going to be 1.8 £8, and we need to put the 0 in to make it 80p. So we can do the same thing. So really this check up here, I'd actually write down in a box here, but just for the purpose of the video, I'm doing it higher so we've got all the workings out together. So for offer 2, we had 38p. We've got 6 pieces of chalk. So 38 times 6 gives us 228p. Divided by 100, because there's 100p in a pound, we get £2.28. And that ties up with that, and this ties up with that. Okay. So I hope you found that helpful. Again, not going through the whole paper, but just trying to sort of really concentrate on looking at the number of marks, thinking about the number of steps, doing this, even if it feels like it's slowing you down, sometimes that's a good thing, because then you're less likely to make mistakes. But the whole point of doing this is you do it in practice, so when you come to the exam, you probably won't need to go through all of this writing. You'll be having these processes and these steps all worked out in your head as soon as you see the questions. Okay, so please like the video, add any comments, subscribe to the channel, make sure your notification settings are on so that you find out when I load more videos, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.